joy come to you, and to you your wassail too. And God bless you and send you a happy new year. And God send you a happy new year.
Just in case you didn't know, I'm Brian.
And I'm Matthew.
And this is Road Trip Recap.
Spoilers up ahead, as today we are talking about the Nightmare episode of Supernatural.
Woo. We're also going to be taking a look at psychokinesis and telekinesis.
Mind knives.
Mind bullets. Well, mind knives for this episode.
Yep. Well, there were bullets also.
There were bullets.
All right, buckle up and let's go. Our episode today opens up in Saginaw, Michigan, as we see a guy pull his car into the garage, and then his car proceeds to pull him into the afterlife.
That's not funny.
It's funny because it's fake. It's not real.
Yeah.
Anyways, the door shuts. The garage door shuts. The doors on the car lock, and then it turns on, and exhaust just starts piling in, and he can't get out, and it just takes him out. Well, turns out it's not real. It's a dream. Sam's having another one of his dreams, and so he's like, "We gotta go, right now." And so Dean's like, "Okay, but it's probably just a dream." So, Sam calls up the police in Michigan to run plates, as posing as Detective McCready, and finds out that it is Jim Miller in Saginaw, Michigan. So they start heading that way, and once they get there, it's too late. The police are already there. The guy's already dead, and they're kind of asking questions to people like, "Oh, what happened? Oh, he killed himself. He was in the garage, all this, and well, how long ago did this happen? Oh, about an hour ago." So Sam's like, "What's going on?" Normally the visions are they help me to save people, but we weren't able to save this guy. They're like, "We need to find out more information." And they're like, "Well, look at these people. They just went through this. They're not going to want to talk to us." And they're like, "No, but I know who they will talk to." So they decide to pose as male strippers. Oh, that's in the bloopers. They decide to pose as priests. Junior priests.
Only one of those is canon. But...
I mean, it's on the DVD.
Yeah.
You just got to look at gags and outtakes. Anyways, they pose as junior priests Simmons and Freely. So that is the bassist and former lead guitarist of Kiss. They go in, they meet Mrs. Miller, or Alice, whatever you want to refer to her as. I personally refer to her as Aunt Zelda from Sabrina. Because that's what, anytime I see her in anything else, that's just what I remember seeing her from, because I used to watch that when I was a kid.
Yep.
Talking about what happened and everything, and then Sam sees Max kind of off in the corner. That's Aunt Zelda's son. That's just what I'm going to call her. Aunt Zelda.
Not Alice, not Mrs. Miller.
No,
Aunt Zelda.
Aunt Zelda. So he goes to talk to Max to, try to comfort, see what's going on and everything. Right before this point, as Sam and Dean are sitting there, Dean reaches over and he grabs a little sausage and eats it. And apparently, this wasn't in the script. They just had props out, and they were technically edible, but weren't meant to be eaten. And so Jensen just reaches over, grabs it, and just does that, which reportedly it wasn't that great. It was terrible.
It may have been sitting out on set for most of the day.
Right.
Kind of a thing.
But he did it, they kept it in, and we're like, we're going to make that a thing for Dean. And so this is actually the start of Dean eating everything because of that choice, supposedly.
All of the hors d'oeuvres are just going to Dean now.
Which causes for a great moment in a later season with when they first meet the trickster.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, come on, I had maybe one. So anyways, Max had found Jim in the garage, so Sam had gone to talk to him. Dean says he needs to use the bathroom, so he goes upstairs and turns into a Ghostbuster at this point. He pulls out something I'd never seen before, never see again. It's shooting out lasers, it's got a screen. I'm like, wait, I don't remember this thing at all.
And never since.
Yeah. and it didn't do any good.
Yep.
So maybe that's why. So they're not having any luck with anything. Dean asks questions to see if the house might be haunted. Nothing's turning out. They go back to the hotel. They're trying to do research to see if anything had happened, in the house or in the area or anything. They're not having any luck.
Yeah.
Nothing is working out for him. It's at this point Sam starts to get a headache, and he has like a flash vision of Jim's brother dying via ghost window. I call it ghost window because I'm reminded of the movie Ghost, when the window like drops down on the guy and kills him.
Oh, that is one of my favorite deaths in Supernatural, though, is the window guillotine.
So they're like, well, we gotta go and see if we can save this guy. So they drive over to, the guy's name is Roger. They drive over to his place, and he doesn't want to talk to them. He sees them as these priests, so he's like, come on, what are you guys, missionaries? And he's just going up inside, and they're like, no, we need to talk to you. He goes inside, they can't get in, it's a secure building. So like, well, we'll go up the fire escape. They're almost to his window, and then they were too late again.
Which, does he keep razor blades like at the end of his windowsill or something? Just with how it just...
I don't know. I mean, I don't study enough in guillotines to know like how much pressure a window would need to just like... And
what?
You know what? Maybe it didn't cut his head off. Maybe it just splattered everything. Enough force coming down. I don't...
It's not
you know
clean.
What? I don't know how telekinesis works. You did all the research. So we'll get to that later.
How much psychokinetic force is needed to be able to decapitate somebody with a windowsill?
So Dean tells Sam, wipe down his prints. Don't want anyone to know that we're here. I'm going to go check out inside. So Dean doesn't find anything inside the house. He thinks maybe the brothers were cursed. Maybe something happened in the family that just, cursed the generations. And if that's the case, maybe Max might be at risk also.
Yeah.
So they go to talk to Max. They go to talk to Max at the Roosevelt Asylum. They go to talk to Max at the Roosevelt Asylum. Anyways, they go to talk to Max, and they find out that they used to be neighbors. So Jim and Roger, they live next door and everything. And so they're like, well, let's go check out the old neighborhood. They go to check out the old neighborhood, and they run into my favoritely named character, which is listed in the credits, like on IMDb and whatever, as Neighborman.
Neighborman.
Who's going? Oh, I guess I'm going.
I guess so.
Anyways, Neighborman was played by Fred Keating, and we actually see him come back later in season 14 as Jack Klein, who is, Jack was named after him, and he's technically his grandfather.
Huh.
Well, not technically. He is his grandfather.
Yeah.
But yeah, Neighborman is Jack Klein, the grandfather of Jack Klein.
He gets a pay raise, basically.
Yeah.
From Neighborman to
actually having a name.
And having a name. I don't know, it could be Mr. Neighborman.
Well, it's Mr. Klein. Because if we're doing headcanon, that could be the same guy.
Mr. Klein, the Neighborman.
Yeah, he could have, just grown up there, done whatever. I don't know where they went to find Jack in the episode. I don't even care enough to look into that. But
Well,
he could move.
He moved. It's fine.
But it would be even funnier if Jack finds Jack in Saginaw, Michigan. Headcanon confirmed at that point. No, then it's just canon.
Then it's just straight up canon.
Anyways, as they talk to Neighborman, they find out that the brothers were kind of abusive. They used to get drunk and just use Max as a punching bag.
Kind of abusive might be a little bit of an understatement.
Yeah, well, it's at this point, Sam starts getting another headache. And, Neighborman Jack, which is now his name, he was like, everything all right? Like, oh, yeah, he's fine. And Sam has another vision of Aunt Zelda getting knifed in the eye with mind knives.
With mind knives.
Sam and Dean are, racing over to try to save Aunt Zelda, and Sam's kind of empathizing or sympathizing with Max. Like, he kind of gets the struggle. he had a hard life growing up. He gets where he could be coming from. Meanwhile, Dean's like, we got to kill him. Like, we can't, like, he's still a person. Like, he's still human. We cut to the scene that Sam had seen. And so...
I mean, it made sense to me.
It made sense until I thought about it. And then I thought about it again. I'm like, no, that's right.
No, that's correct. The scene that Sam had seen.
Yes. So we get Aunt Zelda about to get knifed in the eye, and Sam and Dean, both Batman in at this time. And they're just like, you know, we just want to talk to you. Like, let's go outside, you know, a couple minutes, like we just want to talk. And everything's looking okay up until Dean just had to bring a gun in, Max sees it, and things are no longer okay.
And now we have 9 mind bullets.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, I don't even think yet at this point. I think that's still a little bit later. He just takes the gun. Right now it's still regular bullets.
No, it's regular bullets.
And so Sam's just like, you know, I just want to talk. Like, just you and me, get them out of here. Like, I'm sorry. Like, let's just talk this out. So he's talking to Max and is like, you know, that had to have been rough growing up, you know, as a kid. And he was like, as a kid, how about last week? Like, he was still being beat.
Yep.
And it was the fear of just like, you know, when's the next beating going to come? He basically turned into Carrie at this point, you know, like was having like a horrible time with things and then found out that had like psychic powers and started killing people.
I finally have something that I can use to do something with.
Right. And so his whole thing is, you know, I still have to kill my stepmom because she never tried to protect me. She always stood back and just let it happen. And it had been mentioned before that, you know, Aunt Zelda was a stepmom, and Sam and Dean had heard that she had died in a car accident. I believe Neighbor Man told him that. He thought. And so as Sam's talking to Max, he was like, you know, blame him for everything, even his mom's death. So Sam's like, well, why would he blame you for that? He was like, because she died in my nursery while I was in my crib. Every now and then he'd get drunk and he'd say that, you know, he found her like on the ceiling burning. And he was like, so that actually happened there, Max. Like that.
We have something in common.
Yeah. Your dad's not completely crazy. Kind of an asshole, but not completely crazy.
I think, again, kind of might be a bit of an understatement. But
well, and see, this is when, like, going into the psychology of things, like, well, we'll get into that in a little bit.
Yeah.
So Max is convinced it's not over until Aunt Zelda is gone. And so he throws Sam into the closet, blocks it with a little shelf thingy, and then decides to head on upstairs. He heads on upstairs, and then now's where the mind bullets come in. So the gun comes out, and he's just like, she has to die. And Dean's like, you gotta go through me first. He's like, okay. And then he shoots Dean in the head. Now Dean is dead.
Yep.
But he's not. Because turns out it's another vision that Sam is having. So, ha-ha, fooled you. So then Sam's like, no, and force pushes his way out. He runs up and Batmans himself in at the last moment before Dean gets shot in the head. And he's like, still trying to talk Max down. Like, don't do this. Like, we can help you. Like, I know, like, what happened when growing up and everything, that sucks, but, like, you don't have to do this. Like, this isn't the answer. And then Max is like, you're right. This isn't the answer. And then turns the gun on himself and offs himself.
Mind bullets himself.
Yeah. So we then cut to Aunt Zelda is lying to the police for Sam and Dean. You know, just saying that Max attacked her, brought a gun. She doesn't know where he got it from. Who are these two? Oh, they're friends of the family. Called him when Max showed up. And she's also very distraught because she doesn't have anybody left at this point. Like, everyone that she loves is gone. And she's also probably dealing with the fact that, you know, the guilt of all the beatings and everything.
Yep.
We kind of end our episode with Sam and Dean talking about what happened, and Sam gained a lot of respect for their dad in this moment because he realized how things could have gone differently. You know, like a little bit more whiskey and a little less demon hunting, and they would have had the same type of life growing up that Max did. He also reveals to Dean that he pushed the shelf out of the way with his mind. So Dean's like, all right, bend this spoon. He's like, I can't just turn it on and off, Dean. And he's like, aren't you worried? He's like, no, I know what we got to do. We're going to Vegas. But you can tell, like, Dean is still concerned. He just doesn't want to, he's got that protective older brother thing. So he's not letting it show, but he is concerned. And that's kind of where we leave off with this episode. So tell me about mind bullets.
What mind bullets? Well, telekinesis or psychokinesis has really been around for a while, and it's something that still is kind of persisting to this day. You see it in movies. I mean, you brought up Star Wars, and you brought up Carrie just as you were talking about the episode itself.
Don't even remember some of those.
Yeah. But that just shows how prevalent it is still within our culture. If you watch Chris Angel Mind Freak, you'll see acts of telekinesis. If you watch any kind of magician, you'll see acts of telekinesis. Although the form of telekinesis that they have here in Supernatural is definitely a much more souped up version than what we would see normally in like real life. When someone claims that they have a telekinetic power and they're asked to prove it, they will do something as simple as like bending a spoon, or maybe they'll like hover a chair for a certain amount of time, or like hover a small object between their hands, and then
things that can be done practically.
Exactly. They're not able to, fire a knife across a kitchen into someone's eye. They're not able to suddenly lock all the doors and slam down a windowsill with enough force to decapitate somebody. Those are pretty powerful examples of telekinetic powers. That's something that you would see more in TV shows like The X-Men, where you have, Professor X, who's a very powerful telepath, who has telepathy as well as telekinetic powers. Or Jean Grey, who also has powerful telekinetic powers.
She has the power of passing out. Based on the cartoon from Fox, like, almost any time she was doing anything slightly strenuous, she was, and then she would pass out.
And then Dark Phoenix came into the mix, and, well...
That changed things a little.
Yeah, it changed things a little. So the word psychokinesis and telekinesis basically comes from the Greek root word soul and movement, which is the idea that you are somehow able to project a part of yourself into the world and be able to move it. Now, with all of the stuff that we actually have, here in our modern day culture and society, and throughout time, if you go back to black and white photos of people being able to, of claiming to be able to lift and move things with their mind, is it real? Is it something that we're actually going to have to face down? Well, scientifically, no. It's there was I believe it was the James Randi $1 million challenge, where he would put out the challenge that anybody who could prove that they had any kind of telekinetic power in his very controlled environment would win $1 million. When the competition was eventually discontinued, the prize money had gone completely unclaimed. He was even challenging very high-level telepaths, such as Sylvia Brown, who has books all over New Age sections even to this day after her passing. She never decided to take the challenge, but there were telepaths and telekinetic employers that did take the challenge, and they would agree to certain controls and variables within it. So, for example, one telepath would lay a book down on a flat surface and open the book, and he would stand there and he would push with his hand, and then the book would flip pages. And so that would be part of, could that be replicated? Well, they were having trouble finding people who could replicate it. But then he decided to scatter a whole bunch of paper down in front of the book to try and prove that it was actually his breath. He was just breathing in a strategic way that it was actually moving the pages. As soon as he scattered the paper down, he was unable to do the telekinetic trick. So there hasn't been really any, or there have been excuses made more than anything. That when they get on because it was done on television, is when they would get on the television set, there would be electromagnetic wave interferences with their with their powers. But I think
Speaking of that, I'm reminded of it was a long time ago. It was a similar study thing on TV or whatever, and there were people that were talking about how they could do the no punch knockout.
You actually are going exactly where I was going.
Well, then carry on.
So, because this is something that's right in you and I's alley, as being martial artists as well, is the McDojo Chi no contact knockouts, which are to this day still a very prevalent and even practiced, and having schools pop up all over the place that you're able to suddenly channel your chi to a point that you can push it across the room and stop somebody from attacking you or knock them unconscious with just your chi, just your ki, just your energy, whatever you want to call it, by attacking like the chakra through this point. And again, in practical application, when you actually see some of these martial artists get involved in actual fights with like MMA fighters, or they get challenged by MMA fighters, you don't see the no punch knockouts happen. They'll even talk about how if you just raise your big toe or put your big toe down,
that's the one that I was thinking of.
And then like moving your tongue in a different position in your mouth, you're able to cancel out a knockout that happens with it. So comparatively to what Supernatural has going on, where people are able to, knock shelves off away from doors, or able to lift guns out and slam down windowsills, we've got a pretty tame telekinetic powers in our real world.
That we've seen.
That we have seen.
Because who's to say that the real telekinetics don't just like, you know what, I'm not going to go on TV and expose myself.
I'm going to do this thing. I mean, there is always that. And how do you kill a telekinetic, or would a gunshot work against a telekinetic? I would say so. They're still mortal. They're still human. There's nothing about them that is immortal, supernatural, or anything like that. So yes, telekinesis. And it also makes for a really great line in a song by Tenacious D, which I think people are sick of us quoting at this point.
I don't know what you're talking about. Which part?
With mind bullets. And mind knives in this case.
Yes. Plenty of mind knives.
Plenty of mind knives.
Now, which word was it that basically translated to like soul movement?
Psychokinesis.
So would music be classified as psychokinesis? That's soul movement right there, right?
Depends on the music.
I had to exaggerate because where you can't see my hand here. I was like,
So, what do we have next coming up? What kind of creepy crawly we got?
I do believe our next episode has the worst creepy crawly of all, people.
Oh, it's the Benders, isn't it?
It is the Benders, which, if this gets big enough and this makes it overseas, I watch the Fact Fiend episodes, so, the guy's British over there, and he mentioned when the Airbender movie came out.
Oh, yeah.
There were a lot of promotions for it, like, what kind of bender are you? And apparently in the UK, bender is slang for homosexual.
Yep.
So, yes, we are not talking about the homosexual episode of Supernatural next time.
That's some of the fanfics, though.
But that's not what we're talking about next time. We're talking about people, their last name is Bender. So it's the Benders. The Benders.
Another really creepy episode coming up, too.
Yeah. Which I'm really interested to start looking into that one because of a few things that I've noticed just last time when I just saw it when it was on. But we'll get to that next time.
Well, until then,
stay safe, buckle up, and we got work to do.